Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Monday, June 22nd, 2015. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. You are likely expecting to hear the dulcet tones of Dave Biddle. He's on vacation. He is off the grid. So I am tasked with carrying the BM5 for a week or two. Thankfully, I am joined today by, Duane Long. Duane, how are you this fine morning?
Oh, man, enjoying a gorgeous sunny day for once. I mean, it's been about a week since we've seen sun around here, so we're real happy to see that.
No doubt. It's been a monsoon here in the Buckeye State, in the Dayton-Columbus corridor. So I put up on the message boards, let's get some assistance from the Bucknutters here on what we should be talking about, considering I need help to plan out the week here. And two of the main topics that really came up were, of course, the quarterback situation and kind of you guys would like to see a breakdown of the two deep. Tampa Navy had that on there real quick. So here's what we're going to do. Today, we're going to tackle the offense. Tomorrow, we'll tackle the defense. And in so doing, what we're going to do is, as you guys know, Dave Biddle did an In Too Deep feature for each last week. So we're going to use Dave's Too Deep, what he projects as the Too Deep. And Duane and I are going to go through each position and talk about, do we agree with the way Dave has it and that's the way it will look for Ohio State? Then we'll talk about whether we think there'll be some changes or should there be some changes. And then maybe some names that aren't on here that we think will contribute. So, Duane, let's just get it started where it has to. Quarterback. Dave has it as the starter will be Cardale Jones, and he has the backup with the classic J.T. Barrett or Braxton Miller. So we'll get to the second line first. Do you believe Cardale Jones will be the starter when the Buckeyes go to Virginia Tech?
I believe he will be with a gun to my head, but I still think that J.T. Barrett is the most versatile of the quarterbacks. I think he can do both. I mean, you've got Braxton Miller, who may be an NFL caliber running back. Throwing can be spotty. And then you've got Jones, 12 gauge himself, and he does run awfully well, but it's not from the spread. It's from plays breaking down. If you look back on the plays he actually tried to run the read, it didn't really go real well. I mean, you got a great big guy trying to get up to get up to speed again. You know, you stop to put it in the back's belly and then get up and go again. It's harder for a big guy like that. It's just not his forte. He's just not ever going to be great at that. Then you've got Barrett, who can do it all. I really think it's probably going to be Jones, but I think that Barrett it's not going to surprise me at all if it's going to be Barrett. The one big surprise, I just don't think that when you get right down to it, when you just put these guys, let's say they're lined up side by side across the field in a 7-on-7, that Braxton Miller is going to outthrow either Barrett or Jones. And, you know, that's what the quarterback does, is throw the football. So I believe we'll see plenty of Braxton Miller. I believe he'll play some quarterback. I believe he's going to be all over the place. But I believe that it's a Jones-Barrett battle.
Yeah, that's interesting. I too, am of the mind that eventually JT will be the quarterback. I have nothing truly to base it on except the eye test, and just the vibe I got last year with JT at quarterback made me the most comfortable. And it's important to note, and we've said this many times, this is a gluttonous conversation. There's never been a quarterback competition where you've got a guy who won the national championship, a guy who finished fifth in the Heisman voting, and another guy who entered the season one time as the Vegas favorite at quarterback. So I'm of the mind that JT will eventually be the quarterback. The most interesting part of the season to me is going to be how, if they remove Cardale, how that's handled and such. But I think we're all in agreement that Cardale will be the starter. And then it seems like our staff seems to believe JT will eventually be the quarterback. But we don't have anybody on board that thinks it's going to be Braxton. That would certainly be the best for ratings. Okay, running back on the depth chart. This to me is probably it's got to be one of the more simple aspects of the team. Starter, Ezekiel Elliott. Backup, Curtis Samuel. Duane, fair to say that you think that's the way it's going to go?
I'm not absolutely sure about the backup. Obviously, Zeke is our man. possible early entry back, probable early entry back. Samuel, I think he's going to be getting a lot of reps. I think you have to have an or beside him, too, because he's going to be playing at the H-back, and, I call it wing back. H-back to me is a tight end. Samuel's going to be in there some. He's going to be in at halfback some. Truly, the backup, I think, is going to be Briante Dunn. He's going to be the first guy off the bench, especially if Samuel has been. I think Samuel will be in there situationally, but he's going to be playing a lot. I think he's going to really make an impact out a little bit. He runs strong, but he's not the biggest guy. Get him out in space more. Let him turn on those jets. I think that we'll find he's going to be out there at the wing back with Jalen Marshall. I think the guy that's probably going to be the odd man out with the injuries and all that is Dontre Wilson. He came in here, did very well, but Marshall is stronger. He's shown more consistent hands, and now you got Samuel, another bigger, stronger guy who's just as fast. So I think the guy that we're going to say the old question, whatever happened to, is going to be Dontre Wilson.
I agree with you. I think that we will see early on in the season. I don't think it'll be as much as the Carlos Hyde ride on Carlos approach, but I do think early on in the season they're going to ride Easy a little bit. Cardale Jones has never started more than when he's only started the playoff games. He's still getting used to being a starter, and if JT's getting back in there, it's him. All the quarterbacks will be a little bit rusty, so I could see them riding Easy early. The only thing about Curtis that confuses me is that if he's going to be the main guy next year, I'd love to see him get some extended carries this year, but I think you're right. They're going to try and get him on the field. So H-back. And, yes, I'm from the Gibbs era as well, so the H-back should have a number in the 80s and look like Clinton did here. But the starter, H-back in the Mervyn Meyer offense, Jalen Marshall, the backup, Dave has as Curtis Samuel or Dontre Wilson or Paris Campbell. So I think we agree Jalen will be the man, and from what I've heard, and you can maybe speak on this, he has really shined in practice, and I think is going to be one of the marquee stars of the team this year.
I felt like that. He was really coming on last year, playing extremely well. Whenever he touched the ball, you thought anything could happen. I love the way he runs. That position, the one thing that defined, we talk about it being the Percy Harvin position. The one thing that defined Percy Harvin was how strong he was. You got this real quick guy, great top-end speed, but he was also strong. And when I look at Jalen Marshall and Curtis Samuel, that's what I think separates them from Dontre Wilson. You hit Dontre Wilson, he's going down. You hit Jalen Marshall, Curtis Samuel, you better hope you hit them clean or they're not going down. That's the thing, and they're just as quick as Dontre Wilson. And again, I've seen consistent hands out of Marshall. And I'm not talking about punt returns, but just catching the football, being a stronger guy, more physical guy out there without giving up the speed. I think that those two guys, Marshall, they'll play Wilson some, but I think Curtis Samuel is just so dynamic. Think about that. You're out in space, you get your hands on this guy, but you can't hit him clean, and he's going to get away from you. That's what makes it so much different, having these guys that are a little more substantial guys out there at that wingback role.
Totally agree. Dontre Wilson seems to me to be the guy who I has you on the edge of your seat, and he gets hit and he just gets shoestringed a little too much for my taste. That's also going to be the deal here. I mean, they've recruited so many good players. There's guys sliding down the depth chart here if you look at it. At some point in time, if Paris Campbell's future outweighs Dontre Wilson's present, I would think Wilson's going to be a guy that his future is going to be in doubt, like you said. Here's my crazy comment on this, and I've said this from day one about the guy, and I know they'll probably never do it. The guy I'd love to see them give some run at H-back is Jerome Baker, but I don't see them doing it. I would love to see a bigger, faster guy in there. I think Baker can do it. I also think it's going to be hard to get him on the field at linebacker early. I'd love to see him play, but is that a little too crazy for you, Duane?
No, absolutely not, because when I first saw Jerome Baker in high school, my thought was, they were saying linebacker or running back. I said running back. Get this. That's what I'm saying about Marshall and Samuel. That's what I'm saying about the Percy Harvin role is get a guy out there that he's in the secondary. He's in the back seven. The linebackers are probably not going to be able to catch him, and make the defensive backs try to bring him down. Get him out there in space like that? Absolutely. And he's got the speed. So, throw him in there, and, we're going to have a lot of guys rotating in at that position. Throw him in there once in a while. See what happens. Let him get on the football field. Why? You're probably not going to redshirt him, so let him get on the football field.
That's kind of my point. When people see Jerome Baker, he's a professional football player in 3 years, in my opinion. So I just looked at him on the field. Okay, wide receiver, another, very obvious one. So let's go to the main receiver. Michael Thomas, backed up by Noah Brown. Pretty obvious. You see Michael Thomas?
I think so.
A first-round pick? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think the guy that if he progresses the way he did from when he first arrived to last year, and he's looking like he could be. He's a big kid. He catches everything, and I love after the catch. You want to talk about not going down? Michael Thomas, he is going to take off, and you're going to have to drag him down. He's got good enough speed. I believe he could be a guy that gets talked about at the end of the year as an early entry guy. He caught a lot more balls actually than Devin Smith. So, and Devin Smith had, I think, 11 touchdowns. Michael Thomas had 7. So, and a lot more catches. So, I think he's a guy that is definitely going to be a primary receiver in this offense, and I think he's a guy that could go early on us.
Agreed. I think he's definitely going after this year. Michael Thomas, to me, is the kind of guy who's going to have a great year if he goes to the combine and runs sub 4.55. He's going to find himself at the end of the first round. More of an every down, I think, number one receiver type, a 1.5 maybe compared to Devin Smith, but I think in the NFL is more of a classic 2, take the top off, but very high on Michael Thomas. And the backup, Noah Brown, we've heard great things about. The other receiver position is kind of interesting. Starter, Corey Smith, backup, Terry McLaurin. Corey Smith has, shown signs. I have to say, Duane, there's a part of me that I can't explain it, but he makes me nervous. Maybe I've seen him make too many big drops. But Corey Smith as the other starter, what's your vibe?
Well, see, that's I agree with you. Great blocking receiver, but just the inconsistent hands. The drop balls are going to always. I'll put him in there as a starter because I've seen enough of him to think, give him the shot. But at the same time, I'm thinking I don't ink him in like I do Michael Thomas. I put him in there in pencil. He's going to have some guys that are going to threaten him. A really healthy Johnny Dixon is going to be a real problem for Corey Smith if he's dropping footballs. Johnny Dixon is he's outstanding receiver. He can do everything. He catches everything. Not as big as Corey Smith, not as big as you'd want actually in a guy out there at the number 2 spot. But he is definitely a guy that if he's healthy, he's going to cause a problem for Corey Smith if Corey Smith is showing that tendency to drop the football. I see Dave's got Terry McLaurin as a backup. That's another kid. I was really impressed with what I saw out of him in the spring game. He had a good spring overall. He catches the ball very well. He's another kid that could be a problem. But Johnny Dixon healthy is the one that I'd be worried about if I was Corey Smith.
Yeah, I think as I look at the receivers this year, I think it's Michael Thomas, and then it could be a different guy every week. It could be a new guy to step up and really take advantage. That's one of the positions on the team I think they're kind of waiting for somebody to go in and grab it, or it can be done by committee because receiver can be done there. Tight end, very basic, I think pretty obvious here. The starter, Nick Vannett. The backup, Marcus Ball, almost by default, I would say. I did a podcast last week where I put Nick Vannett as one of my unbreakables along with Adolphus Washington, guys that, obviously not the MVP of the team, but really valuable in that their backup situation's poor. Talk about tight end a little bit for us.
See. Excuse me. That is a huge thing. We don't know if the Marcus Ball that was the number 1 tight end in the country coming out is ever going to show up. He's had, flashes. We hear about him having a great practice, but we don't see him on the football field producing. If he ever comes around, I think he's a guy that's going to shock people. I'm still waiting on that to happen with Marcus Ball. One of the young guys could come in. I still have a belief that Barry could end up moving over to defense. Alexander really impressed me as a high school player, maybe even more so at linebacker, but we don't need linebackers, so Alexander's the one that I think you have to worry about. Barry is probably going to come in here more physically ready to play. He's a bigger kid, but I don't think Ball can even, I wouldn't even put a name in there at the backup because I just think it's so fraught with we don't know what's going to happen. Which Ball finally, you're going to get on the field. He's been here behind Vanette and Hireman all this time. Well, now that you're going to be on the field regularly, is this when light comes on for him? I don't know. I think backup tight end is the biggest question mark at the number 2 spots on this roster.
The thing with Ball is, too, a guy like this, if he has success, it also makes me nervous because how will he deal with that even? So I would agree with you. Rashad Berry or A.J. Alexander is going to have a chance to make hay here very early in their career. Okay, getting to the offensive line, I'm not even sure, left tackle, left guard, center, and right guard are as locked up as you could possibly get. Taylor Decker, Billy Price, Jacoby Bourne, and Pat Elfline. I don't think anybody would dispute that. So let's talk a little bit about right tackle. Dave has Chase Ferris as the starter. He has the backups as Grant Schmidt or Brandon Bowen. Now, I'm not sure I buy that. I think if you look at it, push comes to shove, Jamarco Jones would be thrown in there, even though he's listed as Taylor Decker's backup at left tackle. But right tackle is obviously what we need to discuss, considering the fact that's the only place they lost. So Chase Ferris and his backup situation of Grant Schmidt and Brandon Bowen. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm going off the board with you. I think that we may see that is the one position on offense that we could see a real battle for the starting spot, and that's where I put Jamarco Jones in the mix with Chase Ferris. Is to put him over there and see who's our next best tackle. Put him out there at right tackle. And the guy that loses that battle goes in as the backup, either at left tackle or right tackle. Brandon Bowen is the guy that I'm really excited about. I think that Brandon Bowen is just a kid that can come in and play early. I think he is going to be the backup at right tackle, no matter who wins the battle. I think the battle for the starting spot is Jones or Ferris. That's the only question that remains to be on the offensive line is who's going to be the starter there. But the backups are going to be Bowen. If Jamarco Jones he loses the battle to Chase Ferris, he's going to kick out the left tackle and be the heir apparent out there. If Chase Ferris does not win it, I think he backs up Taylor, and they let Brandon Bowen move in some at right tackle, sometimes behind Jones.
And there you have it. For people who haven't seen him yet, Brandon Bowen is the 8th wonder of the world size-wise, so make sure you check that out. There's the offense. Duane and I will be back tomorrow to handle the defense. Have a good one, Bucknutters.